executive decision. So I am doing two blocks back to back. One was done late into the evening, and this one is done the next morning, as you can see from my watch, after 12 o'clock. So technically, it's Friday. So it's a brand new day, and we're making another block. This way, I don't have to worry about the hustle and the bustle of Friday because it's going to be a lot. And I may come home and say, you know what? I don't want to do a block. If I could still come home and say, I want to do a block and we'll do it around the 10-ish, 11-ish time frame, I'll just do another block. So for now, we are going to do perpetual motion. This is a really easy block. It's made up of half square triangles and one center block that isn't a half square triangle. So all of these blocks are all, I mean, let me back up. All of these squares are 5 inches. Really, they say 4 and 7/8, but because we're going to trim them, it's not going to matter. So we are going, I went with 5 because again, I like looking at 7/8 to me is like looking at 5. So I go with 5, I'll trim it off. That's just the way that I work. So we have two of this orange color in 5 inch. We have four of this pink color or reddish color in 5 inch. We have two of the background. I've already drawn the line diagonally on those. I did two on this one as well in 5 inch. And then because this is going to be a 9 patch for a block that will be 12.5 inches. This one is 4.5 inches square, and this is a center block. So let's get started because this will not be a forever thing. We are going to take our two blocks that we have that we already have the lines drawn on, and then in the background, and then the two red ones that we already have the lines drawn on in the red, and we're going to put them right sides together. With the batiks, you really don't have to worry about right sides together because they almost look the same on both sides. I would check both sides just to make sure that you don't have a side that has a little white tinge on it um, after it was dyed. So we're just taking all of these. This one, I think this other one was drawn on too, but I'll check because knowing me, I can easily mix them up. This is not the one. This is the one. So let me switch these out. Okay, that wasn't drawn on. And then this one was. Okay. So easily enough, there is a diagonal line that is drawn from corner to corner. We are going to stitch on either side of these lines. Whenever you do a half square triangle, you do not stitch on the line. You stitch a 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch on either side. Scant meaning it's about a hair or two from the quarter. Okay, so we're just going to take these to our machine and we are going to quickly do a chain piece down each block. And like I said, this will go together relatively quickly, which is part of the reason why I made the executive decision to go ahead and make the block. Because I was like, well, there's no sense in, waiting until the next day when you have an easy block that you can get done. And then you don't have to worry about, like, I've been coming home after work and crashing. So, I will probably get a nap when I go to get my hair done tomorrow. So I may have a second wind by the time I get home, but hey, just in case. So I've chain stitched all this here. I'm just flipping this around and I can go ahead and just do the other side. One thing about me and quilts is I am not a fan of half square triangles. I'll do them, but if I can avoid when I have patterns that have a whole bunch of them, oh, I will absolutely avoid it. Or I'll procrastinate, I should say, until I have to do it. And it's just all the trimming up that you have to do that causes me to want to, delay the process. But then after I make the quilt, then I'm sitting back like, oh, I should have done this sooner. So I actually have a quilt coming up that I will be working on that I'm doing just that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'll be procrastinating to get that done. Okay. So here we go. And you can see it on this side. So on either side of the line, all we did was stitch a 1/4 inch. We'll separate these out either using your rotary color straight edge or you could use your scissors. You're just going to cut on that line that you drew. So on half square triangles, the line that you drew is your cutting line. When you're making flying geese, it is your sewing line. So the great thing about this is, and again, like you're doing the chain piecing, this goes together. Like the process is really not that hard. Like I said, it's just monotonous and tedious, I think, for me to just do the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that's why I avoid it. Okay. Here's my center. I'm moving the water out the way. Time to get with the iron. You can press to one side or you can press them open. That's your choice. I'm going to go ahead and press these to one side. That's just the choice that I'm making. I am kind of finger pressing these open while I'm waiting for that iron to get hot. For each unit that I made from the squares, I have 2 units that will come from them. So we are making, this method makes 2 half square triangles at a time. There are patterns that you will cut the triangles in half and then try to sew them that way. And then somebody got smart and they said, this is an easier way to do this. And I'm not mad at them because I did it the old way, which was to cut those triangles. You're dealing with the bias edge, which makes it a little stretchy, which is really important for me not to, do a lot of ironing with this because I don't want to stretch the block out of shape. Okay. And you can just go through these relatively easy. Like the hardest thing for me right now is separating these. And then we will square them all up. We had 4 units that we put together. This gives us 8 half square triangles. It's a 9 patch, and so that one center is plain. And this will give us all the units that we need. So we're not making anything else other than this. We're trimming and assembling. slide this out of the way just a little bit. We're taking our ruler and we are going to line up. Let's use the ones as a place. This isn't a ruler. I got this ruler off TikTok shop. The ruler was cheap enough to purchase. And what I did was I wanted to see like what it was like. So I went ahead and got it. But I'll tell you, I like my other rulers better. I'm going to use this because I paid for it. But this is not like on my top 10 list. And partially because I'm used to a line going right down the center of the square, which would be my 45-degree angle. They have them in other places, but it doesn't allow for the squaring up the way that I would like it. So that is just a negative, if you will. It's not necessarily a plus. So what I'm doing now is trimming up all four sides. So I do 2 at a time. And when I do this, I want to make sure that the center points along the way are lining up with that diagonal line. And now I trimmed one side, and this side I want to be 4.5 inches. So this pattern is a free block by Delaware Quilts. So I can give all of the measurements until my heart desires because it is a free pattern. Okay, so this is like what takes the longest of this whole process is trimming. And again, this is like one of those reasons why, like like this is that mindless to me activity that you need to do, like while you're, listening to the TV in the background. Because you can just, listen to that and trim your blocks. So I'm taking my time to make sure everything is lined up, that I have the proper measurements, and then I'm cutting. I think these colors are really good. Like I really love these colors. And so again, just taking the time, lining it up, I'm making sure that I pay attention to where that is cutting through in the center because of the block that I'm using. Again, the center of all those triangles, right? It's not even the center, it's more like the diagonal of all those little squares. And the one with the white on it is driving me bananas because it's blending in with my cutting surface. So I'm just really trying to make sure that everything lines up. It's 2 and 1, 5 more to go. And again, this is block number 14 on my road to 20. I am working on 14 now at this late hour. First of all, I took a nap, so I'm still up. Second of all, I kept going back and forth with, did it make sense to what time like I was going to schedule this? And I kept saying to myself, you already know what it's hitting for when you get to the hairstylist. And like we have a deal. I get there whenever I can get there on a Friday because of school. And then, she does my hair. So sometimes we'll be, shooting the breeze and I might not get out of there until like 9 or 10. So then I just don't want to come home and obligate myself to doing a wash. And that doesn't mean that I still won't come home and do it. It just means that, I don't want people waiting for me. And then, number one, I'm late getting home. Or number two, I don't feel like it. And then, it's like, oh, let me take a nap. Because I always, regardless of whether I feel like it or not, I'll do it. But if I take a nap, I might not wake up. So, like, even today, I don't know if I set that alarm or not. But by the time I woke up, I was like, ooh, it's almost 10 o'clock. So, when I know I'm exhausted, I really, 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 really want to make sure that, I can get something done and not, um, miss the opportunity, let folks down, to do the thing that I said I was going to do. And ultimately, it's not even about letting everybody else down. I let my own self down when I don't complete the thing. So I'm just, trimming these blocks. I have 2 more to go. And then we will be able to put these in order. So again, this is not a difficult block. It's a relatively easy block. And, like I said, the hardest part of this is the trim. Everything else is like we're ready to rock and roll. And I'm using my measurement again of that 4.5 and just really taking my time to make sure that it's lined up on the 4.5. You could use painter's tape, washi tape to mark your square ruler, but yeah, I can kind of line it up and be pretty accurate with it, so I'm not worried about that part. But if your accuracy is not where you would like it and you would prefer to use something else, the washi tape is really good, or the painter's tape to mark it. And then that way you can just stay within inside the tape lines to create, the trim points that you need. It doesn't look like what it's supposed to be. Okay. I knew something was off. Pay attention, Jennifer. Pay attention. Okay. So all of our blocks are cut. We're going to set this up like a 9 patch. Well, it is a 9 patch. This is the center. And these are going to be the middles. And the yellow or the orange is going to go like in clockwise motion. So that's the inside. You can see how that forms. And then these are going to have the backgrounds in the center. And that's the block. So let's slide that over. I'm going to move our machine up a little bit. And now it's time to assemble the block. This is a 9 patch. Everything that I do with a 9 patch, I take the column closest to me and flip it over. So I take column 3 and flip it over onto column 2, and I'll stitch right down there. Line everything up. Seams line up. Edges line up. Take it to my machine and we're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch. If there's nothing to line up other than the edges, we do that. Let me get that under the needle, under the foot. And again, this is a relatively easy one to do. This is not difficult. So if you have been practicing your half square triangles and we worked on those in January, then this part should be, pretty decent because we've already played around with those half square triangles. Okay. We can leave those units together if we like. So I didn't clip the chain. And I'm just opening these up. All right. So they're back in the same order. And I can flip column 1 onto 2 so I don't mess up my order. Just going to clip. They don't have to be perfect. I just want to know where this comes in at so that when I move on the way, I don't have to reposition anything because I will forget the order or the direction when I move it. So I'm just clipping them in place. Okay, that's one. Okay, just take the clip out. They're already facing the way they should go. Line everything up. Okay, and the last one again. No need to, but take those seams down here and line those up. And then these. Okay. And then what happens is because I didn't trim anything, see how they're all like lined up? Just helps to keep everything in order. It's not like a must-have for me. It's just sometimes, I like to try that out. Everything is still in the direction it should be in because that's important to me. Because if it's not, then I tend to do the wrong thing. So now I can flip these over onto my ironing board. And if I choose, I've already pressed these to one side, so I can either press everything open or I can alternate the way that I press them. So I can press them this going this way, this going this way, and then what happens is it allows me to nest the seams, or I could press them open and match the seams. That's up to you. So if I do the nesting of the seams, I'm just going to take my iron and press these going out. Then I will press these seams going towards the center. And then again, for that last row, we're alternating, so those go out. Okay. So these are going out. This is going in. I folded them onto themselves a little bit. I can turn it this way. Just make sure, especially on the corners, on the edges, I should say, that those are nice and flat. The center, not so much because, if it doesn't, when you press them, you'll be fine. But it's those edges that you really want to make sure when you're joining them that they are nice and flat. So I'm taking a little extra love to press those to make sure that they are nice and flat. And especially where the seams are. So the edges, if they're not nice and flat, when I go to press them later, I can get them flat now. Okay. So let's take this off. This is again called Perpetual Motion. It's really like creating, so right here is like the shoe five, and then it's like a almost like a wheel, if you will. I don't know, but like a star, if you will. It's going that way. Okay, so we're going to take this and flip this, and we're going to line up those seams. And because the seams are on opposite sides, the bulk of the seam allowance is on both sides of the seam. I can line the seams up and then just kind of nudge with my fingers to lock them in place. And when I do that, that is going to cause me to hopefully get a really good corner. And we call that nesting. So line those up. And again, this is where we kind of take our time. Nest them and clip them. I can turn this way and do the same thing this way. Awesome. Cincinnati, Ohio. This is now I told my age, WKRP in Cincinnati. Welcome in. I am working on the Perpetual Motion block, and this is block number 14 in my Let's Make 20 quilt blocks in the month of May. So people will often do like a block of the month. I'm doing a block of the day. And the blocks aren't that bad to make. It's nice to meet you as well. So these blocks are easy to make, and you can absolutely tackle, for people who are just starting quilting, and absolutely tackle a quilt in a few days, in a few hours. You can, it can happen. So you just plan it out and you take your time to get it done. If I made a 4x4 quilt, I would 16 days and I have all the blocks done. But I mean, again, I wouldn't make a block a day if I was really trying to get a quilt done. I might make a couple blocks a day, or quite a few, I should say, because a couple is two. And I could be if I spend so much time on them. Most of these blocks in this sampler quilt are no more than a half an hour to make. So we absolutely in a few hours could have made at least 4 to 8 blocks. And then, made the rest of them another day with the sashing and everything else. So when I sit to make a quilt, it is possible that I can get the quilt top done in a day. Okay? And because you nested those seams, you can see how those corners line up. It doesn't always mean it's going to work like that, but in this case, it does really well. So taking your time helps with the accuracy. So there are seasoned folks who we don't like our stuff not to work the way that it's supposed to. I'll get over it. Some people won't. But at the same time, when we're doing this, the more accurate we can get it, the better. Because we like to see those pretty corners and those pretty points. Like I said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I have to keep reminding myself. I'm supposed to hang out with my friends. Is it next weekend or is it this weekend? It might be next weekend. And they're going to do something that requires like a zombie something. And I was like, yeah, that's not me. But I'll see you for lunch because a sister can always eat. Okay. And then I think here and here. Yep. Okay. So that's the block. And let's press it. Again, you're making choices. This again is by Delaware Quilts. There are a ton of blocks on their site. And this is called Perpetual Motion. And it is a free block pattern. So I think they will, I think they mock up the blocks to show you what a quilt will look like. And there's a couple different websites like Quilters Cash will do that as well. But sometimes they'll show you what it looks like to have the same block in a quilt because that's like what do you call that? A program can do that. But if you want to know how to make a quilt out of it and to add sashing and how much fabric do you need and all those other things, then usually you're paying for the pattern. Okay, so we press those seams, and I like to show people when I press the seam sometimes, you see how it folds onto itself? That's why we flip it over and we just give it another good press to help the seams really lay flat. We assume that when we're pressing from the other side that they're laying flat, but that's not always the case. And I'm just using the side of my iron just to push that fold out the way. So I can get nice straight seams. If you prefer, you can absolutely use your spray starch. I use a mist bottle because it doesn't give a lot of moisture, and that's just to help to make this a little flatter. The starch will kind of stiffen up your fabric, and it'll help to make everything lay nice and flat. And you don't want a lot. You don't have to overdo it. I would recommend starching my fabric. Um, if you want to, washing your fabric before you start the quilting process. That way you can pre-shrink it. And then that way when you add moisture to it, it doesn't shrivel up on you. There are some fabrics that you could lose anywhere from a quarter inch to an inch when you add moisture. Okay. This one is like really, 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 really. Okay. And here we go. This is Perpetual Motion. I have to look at that for a second because it's like my eyes were playing tricks on me. There's red in this, So it looks like it cut it off here. It doesn't look like it goes all the way to the corner. I was like, what? And then I looked again and it's like, oh, okay, it's just the fabric. So I just had to see that. But again, this is Perpetual Motion. We have finished the Friday quilt block for this week. And again, so now we're at 14. So I have 6 more to go. So stay tuned for another one on what would now be Saturday. Like I said, I might do 2 on Friday if I come home early enough today. To do it, but I'm considering this Friday morning one as my Friday. So stay tuned again. We will be working on some additional blocks and then we'll be talking about what to do with all the blocks. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for everyone who has liked the live and the video. Please make sure you're liking and subscribing. It was nice meeting you, and I hope to see you again.